The Champions League is finally back again. It has been over 1 month since the 6th match day in the Champions League phase. But in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions for the 7th match day in the UCL League phase. In today's video, I'm going to be predicting the results of every single match in the 7th match day. And obviously, if you guys agree with my predictions, remember to leave a comment down below. But if you guys disagree with my predictions, remember to leave your predictions in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to reply to every single comment. So without further ado, let's get into these crazy predictions. Starting off on Tuesday, the first game we got is Atalanta against Sturm Graz. Atalanta have been a very good team so far this season, and in the Champions League, they do currently sit in 13th place, which is pretty good, having gotten 12 points from their first 6 matches. Obviously, we saw how good Atalanta were last season in the Europa League, where they did end up winning that competition. And in the Champions League, I think they are definitely a top 5 team. Now, in recent weeks, Atalanta have been struggling a little bit in the Serie A, but in my opinion, they are definitely a better team than Sturm Graz. They are a very good team, a very attacking team. They play amazing football. They score a lot of goals. And for that reason, I think this will be a very comfortable win for them, 4-1. Moving on to the next game, we have AS Monaco against Aston Villa. Monaco have actually been surprisingly good so far in this Champions League. Now, in the last few match days, they haven't been the best. But earlier on in the Champions League, they were very good, and that's why they've gotten 10 points from the first 6 matches. But Aston Villa, on the other hand, have been even better when we've seen them struggle here and there in the Premier League. But in the Champions League, they have been very consistent throughout the whole competition, and that's why they currently sit in 5th place. In my opinion, even though they are playing away, I think Aston Villa will win this game 2-1. Moving on to the next match, we have a very interesting match between Atletico Madrid and Bayer Leverkusen. Bayer Leverkusen have been very good in this Champions League, currently sitting in 4th place. And in the Bundesliga, yes, they haven't been as good as they were last season. And earlier on this season, they were a little bit inconsistent. But in the last 10 matches, Bayer Leverkusen have won every single match. But Atletico Madrid, on the other hand, who also were a little bit inconsistent earlier on in the season, have been playing incredibly in recent months, and they have not lost a game since October. They have won every single game they've played in every single competition since October. That is absolutely incredible. I think both of these teams will be very good in this game, but I do think it will end in a 2-2 draw. The next game we got is Benfica against Barcelona. Barcelona did start off the season very good, and towards the start of the season, it looked like they were for sure going to be the favorites to win the La Liga title. But in the months of November and December, they were struggling a lot, and they got a few losses in the La Liga, which was very unexpected. But in recent weeks, they have been playing much better. The front 3 of Lewandowski, Lamine Yamal, and Rafinha are back to their best. And obviously, in the last game in the Copa del Rey, they ended up destroying Real Madrid 5-2, which was a very impressive result. Benfica are a good team, and in recent months, they have been playing better than how they were early on in the season. But I think Barcelona will pretty comfortably win this game 4-2. Moving on to the next game, we have Bologna against Borussia Dortmund. Bologna have been very inconsistent this season. In the Serie A, they have been playing nowhere near how they were last season. Dortmund, on the other hand, are in a similar position to Bologna, as they sit 8th place in the Bundesliga, and they too haven't been that consistent. But Bologna have been playing very poorly in the Champions League. Even though in the Serie A, they may not be as bad, but in the Champions League, they have been very bad. While on the other hand, Borussia Dortmund have been playing pretty good so far in this Champions League. So even though they are playing away, I'm going to predict that Dortmund win this game 2-1. Moving on to the next game, we have Club Brugge against Juventus. Juventus are the only team that have still not lost a game in the domestic league. In the Serie A, they still have 0 losses. They have not lost a game yet. But they haven't been performing that good offensively. And for that reason, they have drawn 12 games. Club Brugge so far in this Champions League haven't been that bad, as they've gotten 10 points from their first 6 games, and they have won a decent amount of games. But in my opinion, Juventus are definitely the favorites in this game. Even though they are playing away, I'm going to predict they win this game 2-0. Moving on to the next match, we have Red Star Belgrade against PSV Eindhoven. PSV still sit in 1st place in the Eredivisie, ahead of Ajax, having won 15 out of their first 18 games. Now, within the last month, we have seen them struggle in a couple games where they lost the game, and they also drew their recent game against AZ Alkmaar. But in this game, I think they are definitely the favorites. Red Star Belgrade have been very poor in this Champions League. They've only gotten 3 points from their first 6 games. So for that reason, I'm going to predict that PSV win this game 2-1. The next game we got is Liverpool against Lille. We all know how incredible Liverpool have been this season. Their manager, their players, the whole entire team has been very, very good in every competition they play in. They're first in the Premier League and they're first in the Champions League. But in recent weeks, we've seen them struggle a little bit, where we've seen them lose against Tottenham in the Cup, and they also drew against Manchester United 2-2 in the Premier League. Lille have been performing pretty good so far this season, and in the Champions League, we have seen them come up with a few incredible results. But with the home advantage, I think this will be a pretty comfortable win for Liverpool. I'm going to predict that they win this game 3-1. And finally, the last game on Tuesday is Slovan Bratislava against Stuttgart. Stuttgart have been very, very inconsistent this season, where we've seen them come up with some incredible results, but they've also gotten a few very poor results, like that one match in the Champions League where they lost 5-1 against Red Star Belgrade. But Slovan Bratislava currently sit in second last. They have not won any games, and to be completely honest, they have been very, very poor in this Champions League. Even though Slovan Bratislava are playing at home, I'm going to predict that Stuttgart win this game 1-0. Moving on to the Wednesday fixtures, the first match we got is RB Leipzig against Sporting. Sporting were very, very impressive throughout the season, both in the Liga Portugal and in the Champions League. But when their manager Ruben Amorim left to go to Manchester United, they started falling off a little bit, and since he left, they have been a little bit inconsistent. RB Leipzig, on the other hand, have been very, very poor in this Champions League, which is pretty surprising because in the Bundesliga, they haven't been that bad. But in the Champions League, they still have gotten 0 wins from their first 6 matches, and they sit near the bottom of the table. But finally, I think RB Leipzig will get a little bit of luck, as I think this game will end in a 2-2 draw. The next game we got is Shakhtar Donetsk against Brest. Brest have been surprisingly good in this Champions League, where they currently sit in 7th place, which is much better than what most people expected. And after the first 6 games, they already have 13 points. So in this game, even though they're playing away, I think they're going to win this game 2-1. The next game we got is AC Milan against Girona. AC Milan are another team that have been very, very inconsistent this season, both in the Serie A and in the Champions League, where we've seen them beat some of the best teams in these respective competitions, like when they beat Real Madrid. But we've also seen them lose to some very, very poor teams. Obviously, they did recently sack their manager Fonseca, and they have replaced him with another Portuguese manager, Conceição, who was a very good manager with Porto. Girona are a pretty good team, but they are nowhere near as good as they looked last season. So for that reason, I'm going to predict a pretty comfortable win for Milan with the home advantage. I'm going to predict they win this game 3-0. Moving on to the next match, we have Arsenal against Dynamo Zagreb. Dynamo Zagreb haven't looked that bad so far in the Champions League, where they've gotten 8 points from their first 6 matches, when Arsenal, on the other hand, have been very good, and they do currently sit in 4th place. But in recent matches, especially in the Premier League and in the FA Cup against Manchester United, they have really looked like they've been lacking in that attacking area, where it looks like they're in dire need of a striker. But even though Arsenal have been lacking that scoring threat in recent matches, with the home advantage, I do think they will be able to beat Dynamo Zagreb 2-1. The next game we got is Celtic against Young Boys. Obviously, in the Scottish League, Celtic have been very, very good, and they do currently sit in 1st place. But in the Champions League, they've been a little bit inconsistent, where we've seen them come up with some very, very good results, but also a few very, very poor ones. But obviously, Young Boys do sit last place in the Champions League. They are at the very bottom, still have 0 points, and for that reason, Celtic will definitely win this game 2-1. The next game we got is Feyenoord against Bayern Munich. Feyenoord currently sit 4th place in the Eredivisie, and they have been playing pretty good, but in recent weeks, they haven't been performing that well, as in their last 2 matches in the Eredivisie, they lost 3-0 against PSV, and they also lost their last game against FC Utrecht 2-1. Bayern Munich, on the other hand, are obviously 1st place in the Bundesliga, and in the Champions League, they do currently sit in 10th place, having gotten 12 points from their first 6 matches. I think they will pretty comfortably win this game 3-1. Moving on to the next game, this is going to be a crazy matchup between PSG and Manchester City. Honestly, I think this game could go either way, because Manchester City have been very inconsistent this season, where we saw them go on that 12-game run where they were playing so poorly, where they only got 1 or 2 wins from 12 games in a row. It was a horrible run, and one of the worst runs by Man City in a very, very long time. On the other hand, PSV have been very, very poor in this Champions League, where currently they sit in 25th place, having only gotten 7 points from their first 6 matches. But in the Ligue 1, they are the only team that are still undefeated in that league, and in the world, the only other team other than Juventus that have still 0 losses this season in the domestic league. Both of these teams are on pretty good form recently, and for that reason, I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. But I don't think either of these teams will be able to get the win, which is not what they want. and I think this game will end in a 3-3 draw. Moving on to the next game, we have Real Madrid against Salzburg. Real Madrid haven't been as good as most people would expect so far in this Champions League, as currently they sit in 20th place, having only gotten 9 points from their first 6 matches, winning 3 games and also losing 3 games as well. But Salzburg currently sit near the bottom of the table, having only won 1 game from their first 6, and they have not looked that good. So even though Real Madrid have been struggling both in the Champions League and obviously in the domestic league, where they haven't been performing as good as some people might have expected, I still think they will pretty comfortably win this game 4-1. And finally, the last game we got is Sparta Prague against Inter Milan. Inter Milan currently sit in 2nd place in the Serie A, but they have 2 games in hand on 1st place Napoli, and if they win these 2 games in hand, then they would be in 1st place. They have been very good. They've only gotten 1 loss so far this season, the 2nd least other than Juventus. And obviously in the recent game against Milan in the Supercoppa, they did end up losing that game. But they are still a very good team, and in my opinion, a top 3 team in the Champions League. And for that reason, I think that Inter Milan will win this game 2-0. And that is the end of this video. Those are my Champions League predictions for the 7th match day in the UCL League phase. If you guys agree with my predictions, remember to leave a comment down below. But obviously, if you disagree with my predictions and you think there might be a few upsets here and there, remember to leave your predictions in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to reply to every single comment. And obviously, if you did enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.